Right, we'll make of it. Dave, I've asked everybody in these interviews to begin the same way, so give us the 2-minute whirlwind version of your life history.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here today. I'm not sure how you talked me into doing this. Amy asked me that this morning, and I have no idea what I'm doing up
It's
here.
pastoral persuasion.
That's what I hear. Yeah. After watching how Bob was roasted last weekend, I'm not sure what to expect from this either. So anyway, I'm Dave Robinette. I grew up in Alexander County, Taylorsville, North Carolina. Only son. My parents actually had an older son who died as an infant, but grew up in a wonderful little community. My mom took me to a church that she was raised in. If the doors were open, we were in that church. There was a lot of talk in that church, a lot of love, but there was a lot of talk of hellfire and damnation. There was a lot of talk about the unpardonable sin, not nearly as much about love and care. And that's what I found here. On through high school, couldn't wait to get out of that little town. Ended up at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Met my wife Ann there. Graduated, moved to Charlotte. I love music, but I can't play a lick of music. But I can figure out ways to enjoy music. So I got into the consumer electronics business, selling audio, video equipment, and I'm still in that business. I actually started with a company called Panasonic in 1983 and joined a company that I was fascinated by, a marketing company called High Tech Network, and they sold the best gear. They sold the good stuff, the Sonys, the Yamahas. And they actually asked me to join them in '85, and in April, I will resign as CEO of that company and go into retirement. So it's been a pretty good run. My wife, Ann, is the love of my life. She is a retired teacher, Charlotte-Mecklenburg School System, dropout prevention for 30 years. She did a lot of really good work. My son Ben was born in March of '84. My daughters, twins, Victoria and Elizabeth, were born in '86. Tori now lives, she graduated from Carolina, now lives in Atlanta with my grandson Marcus, who's 7 months. My son-in-law Ross, who's great. My daughter Elizabeth pulled the ultimate rebellion. She went to NC State. She got her master's degree there, and she works at NC State now. She lives in Raleigh with my 5.5-year-old grandson Miles, and I'm really looking forward to spending time with those guys coming up.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dave, for sharing that. Early on, as I was meeting Dave, he shared with me that he and his wife, Ann, had suffered the loss of their son, Ben, who died as a teenager. That event, as you can imagine, changed their lives. And he was vulnerable enough to share that with me. And I asked him a month ago, 6 weeks ago, would you be willing to talk with us about that? And he said he would. And I appreciate Dave's vulnerability. So I wanted to invite you to just tell us a little bit about Ben and tell us about that story, and then we'll explore a little bit together.
Okay. Ben was I'm a proud father. He was a neat kid. Ben was a runner. He was particularly gifted at running, and he and I did that a lot together. He was entering South Meck High School as a freshman in 1998, and had been. They started working out about a month before and were running some races, and he was about 3 weeks into high school. South Meck had an extremely good team. They won the championship at the conference, and Ben was one of the best runners. He was in their top 5 and consistently performed, and I could just see him growing and the confidence growing in him as he worked with those kids and did these pretty special things. And he was getting ready to run a race. They were going to, I believe it was Wilmington, and I was headed to New Orleans on a business trip. I was there with 4 of my coworkers, and we spent a day in meetings, working with vendors and wearing our suits. And when the day was over, it was just time to get rid of these suits and go eat a nice dinner. So I came back to the hotel. It was in '98. We were still working with answering machines. Got to the hotel, checked my messages at home, and I had 15 messages. Unusual, and I wasn't real happy with that. But the first message was, Mr. Robinette at Charlotte Memorial Hospital are so sorry. If we can help you, please call. Okay, not sure what's going on here, so I called home. And my next door neighbor, Sherry Sakakini, answered the phone. And I said, Sherry, what's going on? David, let me get Ann for you. And it took a few minutes, and Ann came to the phone, and she was crying. And she blurted out the words, "He didn't suffer." I go, "What are you talking about?" And she then realized that I had not heard any more messages. I didn't know what was going on. She said, "David, Ben was training with the cross-country team, and he was hit by a car and killed. He died on Park Road at Smithfield Church Road." And again, he didn't suffer. She wanted to make sure that I understood that. Got through the evening because my 4 buddies were there with me in New Orleans. I generally travel by myself, and had I been by myself then, I'm not exactly sure where I would have ended up the next day. But they got me through the night, talked to me, consoled me when I cried. The next morning, Ben and I were members of Sharon Baptist Church. The next morning, I get a call. It's a friend of mine, Rob Crawford from Sharon Baptist. He was in town. He was going to get me home. Booked a flight, came and got me dressed, and we flew back to Charlotte. When we got here to Charlotte, my best friend Dan Cottingham was in the concourse waiting for me. Picked me up, took me home. He had spent the night at my house and kind of gave me a lay of the land of what was going on at the house, how Ann was, how the girls were, my mom. So I could get it together enough to be the leader of my family, and had to go in and we dealt with it from that point.
This interesting line in the text for today, Joseph says, the brothers intended this as harm, but God intended it for good. I think we have to be careful about how we hear that. You know, there are different ways to think about how God intends things and what God intends. And I don't believe God intends bad things for us, but that God uses all things. And you've talked to me, Dave, about surprising ways that you found God working in all of this. You mentioned in telling the story that you most often traveled alone, but that night you were not alone. And there was something about being there with those friends and the surprising grace of having those friends there and them helping you get through that first night. Absolutely. And then you told me about being home and a surprising phone call that you had. I wanted you to tell us about that. So often, folks, and we know this from Amy's sister and her husband who lost a son, who they say people don't want to talk about this. And they'll turn the other way in the grocery store, and they won't look you in the eye, and they won't say, "Tell me about your son." Tell me, Dave, about the phone call you had one day from someone asking you to tell them about Ben.
Well, Ben's very much a part of my life, our life still. So if you have a friendship with us, we're probably going to talk about Ben. We had dinner two nights ago with some friends, and they've been our friends forever. And during the conversation, one of the guys goes, "Hey, I just had a Ben moment the other day. Let me tell you about it." And that's the kind of relationship we still have with my son as a part of our family. About 2 nights after we buried Ben, Ann and I were home alone, and there was a phone call. And she answers it and goes, "There's a guy on the phone who wants to talk to you. Who is it?" Not sure. So I get to the phone, and the gentleman goes, "David, this is Leighton Ford." Well, I know who Leighton Ford is, but I don't know Leighton Ford, and I don't know that any friends of mine know Leighton Ford. Why is Leighton Ford calling me? And I go, "Okay, but I know this guy, I better say something profound." And I get on the phone and I start, well, maybe this is God's plan. Maybe God needed an angel. All the things that people had been telling me for the last week. And he goes, "David, tell me about Ben." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Tell me about him. Tell me, I want to get to know him through you." And it immediately relieved all that anxiety. I was able to talk to him for about 20 minutes and do the thing that I love doing most, which is talk about Ben. And he was very gracious and just sat there and listened. And it was a wonderful one-way conversation as I dominated it. I did a little research after we got off the phone and found out that Leighton's son had died on an operating table about 20 years earlier. He was a cross-country runner as well. So God works good out of the bad. He called me, and it's been incredibly impactful on the rest of my my journey.
So no platitudes, no easy answers. Tell me about Ben. What a wonderful example, and something that we need to remember, something I'm going to remember. Tell me about Ben. I know, Dave, you and Ann have had an opportunity to talk to other parents who've been in this terrible fraternity, sorority that you all are part of. Tell me about the story about the father you met in your neighborhood who was a carpenter.
I run, and running's my special time. It's a prayer time. It's a meditation time. It's my time with Ben. You won't see me with headphones on. It's my special time. But I just finished a run. Neighbors across the street always need work done on their house, and they were getting some work done. And there was a guy standing out in the front yard, ball cap on, tool belt on, smoking a cigarette. So I'm going, okay, I may need a carpenter. Let's go meet this guy. So I walk over, and I was curious what was going on in my neighbor's house anyway. So we start talking, find out that, this guy had a high school degree, and his son was getting ready to go to the University of South Carolina the next week. So proud, just beaming with pride. We talked about it, and I went on home. A week and a half later, I was coming back from a road trip, been gone for 3 or 4 days. Pull in, there's a carpenter standing out in the front yard again, ball cap on, tool belt on. I'm going, let's go see what's going on. So I walk over, thinking it's the same guy, and go, hey, how's your boy doing? Well, it wasn't the same guy. And the carpenter turned around and looked at me, and I could see the rage in his eyes. He was upset. He walks towards me and goes, my boy's dead. Okay, I said, mine too, let's talk. And we sat down and talked. I kind of disarmed him much in the way Leighton Ford was able to do with me, and we talked for probably 20, 30 minutes, and he was so proud of his son. Gary Moser is the guy's name. Gary is a fabulous carpenter. Now finished high school, yet his son was going to the University of South Carolina, but had drowned 2 weeks before he was supposed to go to school. Kid was apparently, according to Gary, a genius with computers, and it was so interesting, and our relationship has continued since then. We occasionally will share texts with each other, phone calls, how you doing? He does all my carpentry work, so I'm not very good at it. But it's been a wonderful relationship, and one that came out of nowhere. Again, God working.
You have to wonder about those coincidental opportunities, right? Yes. You thought this was some other guy, and you walk up and said, tell me about your son, and it happens to be a man who's grieving because he's lost a son. And Dave's able to talk to him. What a wonderful experience and opportunity. There's now a scholarship in Ben's name. Tell us about the scholarship.
As I said, Eve is a runner and was particularly gifted runner. A couple weeks after he died, some friends in the neighborhood came to me and said, we want to do a race for Ben, and we want to put together a little scholarship fund. I went, okay, I'm in. I figured it was going to be me and 6 or 7 of Ben's buddies, a couple parents, and doing something in the neighborhood. I went to a Christmas party 2 weeks later. Saw a good buddy of mine. He and I coached a lot together. He coached AAU basketball with me. I walked up to him, hey, Tom, how's it going? How's coaching this year? He goes, I'm not coaching. I said, what are you doing? He goes, working on Ben's race. I went, what are you talking about? He goes, the race, we're going to make something happen. Fast forward to March, about 3 months later, we had a race that was called This One's for Ben in Park Crossing, our neighborhood. We had 1,300 runners. It was sanctioned by Nike. We raised almost $60,000. Came back, did the same race the next year. About the same number of runners, $50,000 or so. So we raised that money with just people reaching out to us and sharing with us.
All the good that can come of tragedy, I think we have to be careful. None of the good justifies the death of Ben. None of that good justifies the pain you all have gone through, and yet we do work to find good, to find God working with us and bringing about good in the tragedies of life. And so I'm grateful for the work you have done, for the parents you've been able to talk to, the great counsel you've been able to give, for the way you've been able to share your story and your testimony with parents you've worked with. This story of Joseph that's winding up is a long and winding tale, and it comes to a surprising conclusion. And I was thinking, Dave, that your story has been long and winding in your own faith journey, and you've come to Park Road, maybe kind of surprising. Your friends, the Ashcrafts, have had something to do with that. And when I met you, you were asking some questions of faith, and I'm wondering how you kind of reflect on that, bringing all that together, the good and the bad, the tragedy, your journey of faith, and how you see yourself now that you've wound up at Park Road.
I've always been involved in the church, sometimes actively, sometimes rather passively, but I was involved with the church here in town for about 20 years, and I ushered, I collected money, I counted money, did a lot of things, and was pretty comfortable in that church. Things started to change a little bit, and the talk of the talk of love and compassion in the services were often countered with talk of discrimination, talk of hatred even, and it just things were starting to collide with my thought process. Had some interesting interactions with guys in the men's group that I was involved with, and it became pretty obvious to me that I needed to think about something different. God was working in my heart, and I think he was telling me very clearly, you need to look at where you are, and I think there's an opportunity somewhere else. Hugh and I have known each other for 40 plus years, and Ann and I love to get together with you and Sarah. It's a great time. We enjoy talking about our kids. Our political ideologies tend to align perfectly, so we enjoy those conversations. Ann and Sarah often talk about books and exchange books, and Hugh and I, who don't read, will talk about music and enjoy it. But our dinners would generally, at some point, ease into a situation where I was talking about my faith and my journey. They were talking about their faith and what was happening at Park Road Baptist. And it kept sounding better and better. And we got home one night, Ann and I, and she looked at me and goes, that church sounds like a good fit for you. You ought to investigate it. So I started joining you guys virtually. Russ and I got together for what was a much longer conversation than he anticipated, and I told him I want to become a member of this church. And I got to tell you guys, I am thrilled to be here. I love this church. I love being here. I love the message that I hear from Russ and Amy of love. I love to sit in here and listen to Dan's voice, which is a voice of peace to me. I look forward to meeting all of you, getting to know you much better. And thanks for your support.
Dave, I'm so grateful for the winding journey that has brought you this far and brought you our way, and for the surprising grace that we've enjoyed together. Thank you for your testimony today, for the way God has worked with you and Ann and in your lives in surprising ways. We're grateful for you sharing that today.